Pranams to all of you. There is this amazing person, a very interesting person, an enlightened and awakened human being, Andrew Cohen. He's still with us. So many years ago, I don't know the exact year, but many years ago, his magazine called Enlightenment, it is no more coming now. So one of the editors of this magazine called Enlightenment, of Andrew Cohen's, she had come to Amma, Mata Amritanandamayi Devi, for an interview. A casual chat, and this was recorded and published later in his own magazine, Enlightenment. So I'm going to take a few lines from that interview. It's very interesting because the title of that interview goes like this: when you go beyond the ego, you become an offering to the world. That was the title given in the magazine. So this interview with Amma was on that subject, ego. It's a very interesting dialogue. So I thought I'll share a few thoughts and my own understanding about what they discussed. So the questioner, the editor, asks Amma, what is ego? What really is ego? People say so much about ego. You have to control the ego. You have to, go beyond the ego. What is it all about? What is ego? And look at the, beautiful way Amma answers this question. Her answer, I'm reading out from the article which came in the magazine. The questioner asks, what is ego? Amma replies, you are actually asking what is unreality. Look at the words. You are actually asking what is unreality. But how can unreality be described? What use is there in talking about something that isn't real, that is non-existent? And how can you speak about that which is real? The mind is the ego, but the ego is a big lie. It's a liar. It is unreal. What does Amma mean by this? Right in the beginning, Amma says, you're actually asking what is unreality. She's trying to, help us understand that there is no such thing as ego. There is no such thing as the ego. In one of the previous videos, I remember talking about this, about ego. And Swami Vivekananda, the great Swamiji Maharaj, beautiful explanation of what ego is all about. I don't mind repeating it again. Swamiji Maharaj says, if you have a lighted agarbatti, an agarbatti which is lighted, you take that lighted agarbatti and rotate that agarbatti in a fast way, right? Go on rotating. Now what do you see? What does somebody who is sitting opposite me, who's rotating the agarbatti, see? A circle of fire, right? A clear circle of fire. Now what is the conclusion? There is that fire, that circle of fire, which is real. I can see that. It's solid. But then, stop the movement of the agarbatti, stop rotating. What do you see? The circle of fire is no more. In fact, it never was. Only when the agarbatti was rotated, you could see the circle of fire. But when the movement stops, the circle of fire, the so-called circle of fire which appeared for a short time, disappeared. Actually speaking, there is no circle of fire at all. It's just an illusion created by the movement of the agarbatti. Swami Vivekananda says, when thought, thinking moves, a pattern is created which is called ego. There is no such thing as the ego, a solid entity sitting inside our body, our brain and so on. There is no such thing. It is only a pattern, a movement of thinking which gives us the illusion that there is somebody there. So thought, when it moves, creates the ego. When the agarbatti moves, rotates, it creates the illusion of the circle of fire. Similarly, when thinking is active, is in movement, there appears to be someone there who is thinking. It is not that there is the thinker thinking about something. Thinking creates the thinker, never the other way around. It is thinking which creates the ego, the so-called thinker. That is what Amma beautifully says. Right? You are actually asking what is unreality. There is no such thing. And as Amma beautifully says, how can you describe something that is not there? Not there at all. Never was and never will be. What are we talking about? Amma beautifully says a story here. There was a boy, a cowherd, who took his cows for grazing every day. And one evening when he returned, he tied all the other cows in its place. And when he came to the last cow, there was no rope. Right? It was getting dark. So he didn't know what to do. Now, how to take care of this cow where there is no rope? There is no rope to tie this cow. So he goes to a very wise person nearby and tells his problem. Look, I don't have a rope to tie this particular cow. So what do? I have to go back home for the night. How will I leave this cow alone? And the wise man said, do one thing. Go there, take an imaginary rope. Take an imaginary rope and tie the cow and tie the other end to a tether. Now all this ensuring that the cow is watching you. And so the boy understood. He goes back to his place, and right in front of that cow which was standing there, he takes an imaginary rope, puts it around the cow's neck, and the other end of the imaginary rope he ties in that tether and leaves it. And he goes back home, has a very peaceful, deep sleep, and next morning he comes back to the cow shed to take all the cows for grazing. He unties all the other cows and takes the cows for grazing. But then he looks at this cow which is standing there, unmoving. So the boy goes there and, tries to push this cow to take the cow for grazing, but the cow doesn't move. However hard he tries, the cow is not moving. And then suddenly remembered, oh my God, I had tied this cow with an imaginary rope. Now what will I do? Again he goes to the wise man and asks him for the solution. What shall I do? And the wise man replies, go back again, and as the cow is watching you, remove the imaginary rope from around its neck and take it for grazing. And that's exactly what the boy did. He went there, untied the imaginary rope and let loose the cow. Only then the cow jumped about and went for grazing. This may be a story, but look at that. When you believe that you are bound, you're bound. It's all belief. How deep and strong is your belief system? So Amar says beautifully, this is what a great guru, a Sadguru, a real enlightened master will do. There is no such thing as ego there. But then because you have been conditioned that way for lives, how much ever the master tells you or tells anybody, we won't understand. We are not able to understand because we think there is a solid entity there, an ego which has to be controlled, transcended, overcome, and so on. The guru knows that there is no such thing. But how will he or she will make you understand? Exactly like what the cowherd did. Imaginary rope. This imaginary appearance called ego has to be untied, has to be released. How? The guru does. The guru helps you remove that illusion that you have created on your own through several generations, several lives, life after life after life. This is exactly what the guru does. Remove something that is imaginary. Amma's beautiful reply. I'll read a few more lines from her reply. The ego is an illusion with no existence of its own. The ego is an illusion with no existence of its own. So what are all these innumerable people talking about? Control your mind, control your ego, transcend your ego. What is there to control? What is there to transcend? You see how we trick ourselves, how we go on cheating ourselves day after day after day. Even when the great gurus of the world, rishis and sages, this is what they have been telling us since time immemorial. See it clearly. Watch what's going on. Observe. Like the master is pointing his finger towards a star and tells you, look at the star, beautiful. But we look at the tip of the finger. And the master has to give you a knock on the head. This is what the guru does. So Amma says, ego is an illusion which has no existence of its own. It appears to be real. Look at that. It appears to be real because of the power it derives from Atman. Atman is another name for Brahman. Brahman is a Sanskrit name for self with a capital S. Who you really are, who you actually are. It is animated by the Atman, animated. The very existence of the apparent ego depends on your own consciousness, awareness, who you really are. The questioner, the editor of that magazine again asked the second question to Amma. What is ego death for the true seeker of moksha? Look at the question. What is ego death? What is the death of the ego, the apparent ego, the illusory me, for the true seeker? Right? For the one who is seeking kaivalyam, liberation. Amma says, if the ego is unreal, what death are you talking about? Look at that. If the ego is unreal, what death are you talking about? We superimpose the unreal on the real. What really exists is Brahman, Parabrahman, the Self, the Absolute, Satchidananda. There is no discovery, only uncovering. Look at the words. You are not attaining something. You are not achieving something. Who is there to achieve what? Something that is always already there, eternally there, right now. Where is the question of attaining? Who is to attain? Even the very idea of seeking liberation is the movement of thinking. There is a lovely statement by a great Tamil Siddha. Asai arumin, ஈசனோடாயினும் ஆசை அருமின். Cut all desires, even the desire to have no desire at all, even that is a desire. Let that also go. Nobody there to cut desires, no one to transcend the desire. Desire arises, fulfills itself, evaporates. There is no one there. All this appears in consciousness, appears in awareness, which is the real nature of who you are, who I am, who everything else is. Third question. The editor is not yet over. She asks, what are the signs of true ego transcendence. Again, look at the question. I mean, you can't but raise such questions. Ego transcendence. Amma has clearly said there is nothing there. So what are you talking about transcending? Transcending what? But the question, what are the signs of true ego transcendence? What she means is, what happens when that illusion, that imaginary ego is no more? I mean, it was never there, it will never be, but the illusion, the imagination that there is an ego, an entity, when that imagination, the thought pattern dissolves, then what happens? Amma says, one who has gone beyond, the limitation of human language. You can't say but this way. One who has gone beyond the ego becomes an offering to the world. You remember the title of the article we read? Exactly. One who has gone beyond the ego becomes an offering to the world, like an incense stick that burns itself out while bestowing its fragrance to others. This is an example. Don't stretch the example too much. For such a person, for such a being, there is no sense of otherness. Look at the words. There is no sense of otherness. I remember telling this in another video about the great Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. Somebody asked him, Bhagavan, instead of sitting like this, always here sitting, doing nothing, look at the questioner, doing nothing, why don't you go and help others? As if the fellow who is asking the question, understood everything. Bhagavan simply smiled, looked at the questioner and said, number one, how do you know I am not helping others? How do you know? How do you know I am not working? Second, for me, there are no others. The whole universe, the multiverse, everything is me. I am everything. So where is the question of me helping another? That another is me. I am. Whether the questioner understood that or not, we don't know. This was Ramana Bhagavan's answer. Exactly same. For such a person, there is no sense of otherness. It is difficult to say what a clear sign would be. Amma says, people pretend or they imitate this and that quality. But for a real master, for a real guru, one who truly doesn't identify with the illusory ego, his or her entire being and every action is a pure expression of love and self-sacrifice. Amma's words. Divine love and self-sacrifice cannot be imitated. You can't copy that. It is an expression, manifestation of that which is already there. Whether we know it or not, whether we are aware of it or not, what is expressing will go on expressing. Our small little petty minds may not understand. Who cares? What does it matter? Right? All the great masters, all the great ones, whether it is Amma or Bhagwan Ramana or Sri Ramakrishna or Swamiji Maharaj or Tapovan Maharaj, you name it, anybody, any enlightened being of this planet, past, present, and in the future, they will all say the same thing in different words to suit different kinds of people and different cultures. It's the same. I'll end up with a beautiful anecdote. Yogi Ram Surat Kumar, another great master, who lived in Tiruvannamalai all his later part of his life. He was a great, before the enlightenment happened, he was a seeker, the truth seeker. So he was greatly attracted and devoted to two great Mahatmas, among many other. One was Krishnaji, Jiddu Krishnamurti, and the other one was Papa Ramdas, Swami Ramdas of Kanjangad Ashram, Ananda Ashram, Kanjangad. Now these two masters were apparently talking about this, about two different things. Papa Ramdas was, of course he, told people to do Nama Japa. He gave tremendous importance to Nama Japa, name, right? So Papa Ramdas was saying everything is in the name. Word, name, everything is that. Krishnaji, on the other hand, was telling nothing is there in the word. The word is not the thing. Now Yogi Ram Surat Kumarji was so confused. How can two enlightened, awakened, great beings of the world tell two opposite things? Contradictory, almost. How can they do that? So he wanted to clarify. He wanted to directly go and, clear his doubt. So he followed Krishnaji. Many places, when he came to India, he used to give talks in many very, other places like Delhi, Kolkata, Bombay, Chennai and so on. So he followed Krishnaji. And when Krishnaji came to Chennai, the Krishnamurti Foundation headquarters in Adyar, Chennai. So Yogi Ram Surat Kumarji came there one early morning, 6:37, and he knew that at that time Krishnaji would come down from his room in the first floor and go for his early morning walk. Always he used to go alone. Maybe sometimes a couple of people would follow him. But usually Krishnaji comes alone. So Yogi Ram Surat Kumarji was waiting for Krishnaji to come down. And then he saw Krishnaji coming down. As he was walking towards the front, Yogi Ram Surat Kumarji rushed, fell prostrate and touched Krishnaji's feet. Krishnaji gently lifted him by his shoulder, and when he stood up, looked straight at Yogi and told him, both of us, though we talk different words, we mean the same thing. What are the words? Both of us mean the same thing. Now Yogi Ram Surat Kumarji did not even open his mouth. He had this tremendous doubt burning his body and mind. He never opened his mouth, not a word came out of his mouth. And yet Krishna ji looked at him and this is what he said. Both of us mean the same thing. Right? The words of these great ones differ. Obviously, what Bhagavan said in Tamil, it's not comparable to what Krishna ji said in English. May not be. Apparently, they will look contradictory. But they're not. All the great teachers of humanity, they are interested only in one thing: to come down, to take a body on this planet and help us, you and I, break this illusion of this imaginary construction and liberate the awareness, the consciousness which has identified itself with that little me. That is all their work. Their major work is that. They have not come here to comfort you, to give you solace. Yeah, it could happen, but we are not denying that. But then the major purpose why all these great ones have come is only for this, to liberate that consciousness from its own traps. Right? This is exactly what Amma also said in this interview, and this is what she has been telling right from beginning, in her own language, in her own sweet words. How many of us could really understand that? Depends on your level of maturity, your intelligence, your understanding, your upbringing, and million other factors. If you really understand, if you think there is a little understanding, a little light has come, you're blessed. Right? The very fact that you and I are interested in all this is a sign of anugraha. Without anugraha, there is no way anybody can even get interested in this. No way. Aren't we all blessed? Huh? This is a fact. A Buddhist Zen teacher once said, egolessness, listen to this carefully, egolessness does not mean that there was an ego in the first place and eventually it was done away with. Very interesting. I'll read it again for your sake. Egolessness does not mean that there was an ego in the first place and eventually it was done away with. On the contrary, it means there was never any ego at all in the first place. There was never any ego in the first place. All the masters say the same thing. This was by Sogyal Rinpoche, a Tibetan master. To realize this is called egolessness. Beautiful. So forget about controlling the ego, forget about transcending the ego, forget about overcoming the ego. The realization that there is no such thing as the ego is that state of egolessness. Right? Even intellectually, when one realizes this, it makes you so free. You don't have to be bothered all the time about me all the time. No, thinking stops. Ego is gone. There was no such thing. All that matters is Is the mind absolutely silent? That is all. Now don't ask the next question. How to make the mind silent? Ego trip. Same thinking pattern. Thought stops on its own when it realizes its own uselessness in this realm. Right? Of course, thought is useful in the material world, on the planet, in the third density world. Of course, it is useful. But then, the moment one comes to this scenario, this level, this realm, thought is useless. Right? It's a beautiful dialogue. Fantastic answer by Amma. Right? Thank you. Pranams.